So hello everyone. We'll be speaking on Parashat Pinchas today, the weekly Parsha as usual. So we'll just focus on the introduction, kind of like we did last week. But a few important points, we'll try to take a wider lens and see what's going on. It says the pasuk, "V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor." God said to Moses, "Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen heshiv et chamatim el bnei Yisrael." And the pasuk goes on. So what does that mean? So Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen, he drew away my wrath from bnei Yisrael. By doing what he did. So it says Rashi, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. So Rashi goes, Lefi shayu hashvatim mevazim oto, because the tribes would disgrace him, they would denigrate him. Haritim ben Putize, have you seen this the son of this fattener? Zeh shepitem avi imo agalum lavodat kochavim, who his grandfather on his mother's side would fatten calves for avodah zarah, for idol worship. V'harag Nasi shevet Yisrael, and he killed the Nasi, the prince of the tribe of Israel. V'fikach v'hakatu v'yechso achar Aaron, and therefore the pasuk came and actually linked him to Aaron. So that seems like a very nice, interesting comment of Rashi. But here's where we take a bit of a wider lens. We need to understand what does Rashi comment? When does he decide to speak? After all, there's when one of the rabbis decide to kind of take on the Chumash and offer a whole pirush to it, they don't just kind of do it as, it's like, oh, here's a nice idea that I really like, here's another nice idea that I like. They actually have a specific agenda in mind. They go through all of Chumash with a specific eye, with a specific lens, to comment and to explain things according to what their agenda dictates. Therefore, our question requires an answer. What is Rashi's job? His job is to explain Pashat Pshat. What's the pasuk doing? What's it explaining to us? And after all, the reason why this sticks out, why is Rashi commenting? Because this pasuk kind of makes sense. We're introduced to Pinchas. It's Pinchas ben Elazar. We're told who his father is. That makes sense. Ben Aaron HaKohen. So now we know which tribe he's from. That's fully consistent with the agenda of the Torah. There's nothing for Rashi to comment on here. We should just see that and be like, great, thanks for letting us know, and now we can move on. In the same way that last week we saw Balak ben Beor, and the fact that it didn't give his full credentials, Melech Moav, was something that's unusual. Why didn't it tell us his full credentials when we were first introduced? So again, it should have said Balak ben Beor, Melech Moav. So now we know who his father is and where he's from. So too here, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. That makes total sense. So why is Rashi commenting? So since Mizrahi, as you can imagine, when you're someone of Rashi's caliber, there are often other explanations required, because we don't always necessarily know on our own what Rashi is asking, how he's explaining, why he's explaining what he's explaining. So the Mizrahi is the greatest of the commentators on Rashi, and he says, well, that's because just a few psukim earlier, at the end of last week's parsha, we actually met Pinchas, and he was given his full credentials back then. As we see in 25:7, Vayar Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. So you already know his yichus. That's why Rashi needs to explain here. We already know this. So comments Rashi, that's because people would make fun of him. Now, Rav Bernstein had another additional side comment. It was also because in last week's parasha, it was the Torah speaking. The Torah is just telling us, here's Pinchas. In case you didn't know who he was, here's who he is, Ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. Whereas here, it's strange because V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. God is telling Moshe, Pinchas ben Elazar HaKohen, ben Aaron HaKohen. Now, Moshe and Aaron were brothers, and Pinchas was Aaron's grandson. So Pinchas was Moshe's great nephew. Moshe knew who Pinchas was. So why does God need to tell Moshe who he is? Moshe knows who he is. So enter Rashi and explains the difficulty in the text. Okay, so now that we know that, and so why were I guess a good question would be, so Rashi's explaining the fact that, we need to get his yichus. Why? Because the tribes were making fun of him. Wow, but why? Why were they making fun of him? After all, like we said, we read the text last week, we saw that there was a plague spreading in Israel, 24,000 people were killed, and so Pinchas took up his spear, and he went, and he did the act that he did, right? And then the plague stopped. So we can see that this was a good action. Why did people feel the need to criticize him? Clearly, you got effectively a hasoma from God. He stopped the plague. Says Rav Bernstein, well, that's easy for us to say because because right now everything is clear to us. The Chumash points out there was a plague. Pinchas did what he did. Plague stopped. So to us, we know perfectly well that what Pinchas did ended the plague. But to people back then, they may not have made that link. They didn't necessarily make that connection. Maybe they just thought, okay, 24,000 people died. Those are the people who had to die, and now this completely disconnected event happened, and let's criticize. So that's possible. There's another question, like even okay, fine, granted, but what still people feel any need to complain? What Pinchas did had no effect on them. Pinchas didn't hurt them. He didn't take any action against them. So why do people feel the need to criticize? So there are two potential reactions to a good action, because what Pinchas did was a good action, clearly. The first is recognizing the good act. Like, look, I didn't take that action, but thank God Pinchas did. He did the good thing. So you know what? I didn't do it, but I'm glad he did. Whew, we're safe. So that's recognizing the goodness. So the easier route is staying stubborn, saying no, what I did was right. I should have taken that action. That action was wrong. Why did he take that action? And therefore criticize and level criticism against the person who took the good action. That's another route to take. So there you have it. Those are the potential problems. But even so, based on this commentary of Rashi, again, it seems that people were very familiar with who his mother was. Again, like, Pinchas, his grandfather was Yitro, who fattened cows for Avodah Zarah. But it seems a little unusual because didn't they know who his father was and who his grandfather was? They were Kohanim. And just to put context into place, back then, there were 4 Kohanim who actually existed in Bnei Israel. So, seeing as there weren't so many Kohanim around, people for sure knew who Elazar was because he was a Kohen, and as a result, because they knew who Elazar was, they must have known who Pinchas was. They knew who Pinchas was descended from. So why are they commenting about Yitro's, Pinchas' lineage back to Yitro, the idol worshipper? Explains Rav Bernstein. Because clearly, this wasn't a commentary on, say, his lineage from a biological perspective. It's rather a lineage from a characteristics perspective. Because characteristics are also inherited. So what they're saying is, this action, this stinks of a Yitro deed. The fact that you killed this Nasi, that can come from Aaron. That came from Yitro. That has calf fattening written all over it, says Rav Bernstein. Likes to make good jokes throughout his Divrei Torah. So fine. So that was the accusation. So steps in God and says to Moshe, even though Moshe knows full well who Pinchas is, no. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron a Kohen. This didn't come from the Yitro side. This came from the Aaron side. You might think that this was a bad deed, but I'm giving my haskama to what Pinchas did. This has Aaron a Kohen written all over it. That's where the characteristic came from. Because even though it's true, Aaron a Kohen, what does Pirkei Avot say? He lelomer havemi talmidav shel Aaron, be like the students of Aaron. Or have shalom v'rodiv shalom, who loved peace and pursued peace. Or etar briot, m'karvan Torah, who loves the creations, brings them closer to Torah. So Aaron was a peace lover. What it teaches us, though, is even though it's true, we love peace. Not always does peace take that path of inaction, right? Of inactivity. Sometimes the path of peace takes violence. So even though what Pinchas did was admittedly a very violent act, this was after peace. Why? Because again, the Bnei Israel were dying left, right, and center. There are 24,000 of them who died at the end. Once Pinchas took his action, the plague stopped, and therefore it was an action for saving Jewish lives. And that's why God says this was an Aaron a Kohen act. And just to bring out this point, Rav Bernstein, as his last comment on this, brings out a comment by the Lubavitcher Rabbi Zatzal. Beautiful idea that sometimes we can read Rashi and we just get swept up with it. We're just like, yeah, this makes sense, great. Rashi says what he says, and moving on. But of all things to pin on Yitro, Haritem ben Putisen shepitem avi imo agalim lavodat kochavim, who would fatten calves for avodah zarah. Yitro did more than fatten calves for avodah zarah. He actually did avodah zarah. So why is Rashi commenting on something that is almost like it's almost a side point. It's not so bad. That's almost like a preparatory stage. Better the preparatory stage than the act itself. What about that? Why doesn't Rashi comment about that? Why did the Chachamim bring that out in Yitro's deed? So Lubavitcher Rebbe explains that because there are two things that you could, inherit from your parents, or maybe it doesn't say it like that, but there's avodah zarah, and there's like fattening calves. What's avodah zarah? It's a mistaken belief. You believe something, it's wrong, fine. So eventually you can dismiss it. Once you get enough factual information, enough evidence, or even exposed to something else, then your beliefs will change, right? That's not necessarily inherited. Again, the reason why you probably have the beliefs you have is because you grew up in a specific environment, you saw what your parents believed, what they saw in the home, what you saw in school, so that kind of infused you with your beliefs, right? However, once you get a little bit older, you can easily just dispel those beliefs once you see it's not true. Characteristics are not quite like that. Characteristics you inherit from your parents, and those are much more difficult to dispel. Factual information itself may not be enough to push away the way you act. So what they're doing is saying is why focusing on the fattening calves of Yitro? Because there's something kind of cold about fattening calves. After all, you're taking this animal, you're breeding it, you're taking care of it, you're feeding it, you're fattening it, all in order to slaughter it for avodah zarah. And doing such a thing for a prolonged period of time can eventually breed a certain familiarity with violence, a disconnection, an emotional disconnection to what you're doing, and that's why, of all things, when Israel would accuse Pinchas, it's like, have you seen the descendants of Yitro who fattened calves, not who worshipped avodah zarah. Avodah zarah is a belief; you could dismiss a belief, but a characteristic that bred such coldness and such violence, that's where it's coming from, says the Lubavitcher Rebbe. That's why Rashi says, Shepitim agalim la'avodat kochavim. So that's it for now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for allowing me to take a couple minutes to organize my thoughts. Have a wonderful Shabbat. Enjoy the Dvar Torah, and take care. Hopefully I'll see you next week.